Chronic Hoosier joining us now. Chronic, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's one of those weird days after a great basketball game. You wake up to the realization that there ain't going to be any more of those for several months to come. So just trying to readjust to our new reality here of the spring/summer sports season.
And you know what?
Greg, what did you make of the game last night?
It was a hell of a game, I thought.
I thought it was a tremendous basketball game. It was a couple of just massive runs, two teams that showed, I felt like that they certainly earned their spot in that game. But what sticks with me this morning, and it's funny, with you guys talking about Xavier Johnson right before I get on, we just watched two teams with some massive NCAA issues. Kansas obviously still working its way through the process. Carolina's having rocked
18 years of academic fraud.
Having rocked what it means to be a student athlete, if you will. But hey, non-athletes got those same benefits of the BS classes too. So, that's okay. But it's just such an odd juxtaposition, sad at the same time, that, you've got two programs who clearly fell astray of NCAA rules, and they're playing for the biggest trophy in the whole game, even though Kansas is still pending. You've got some pretty major issues there, but obviously it doesn't matter so long as everybody tunes in and they put a great product on the floor. And we're sitting here talking about whether or not we should kick a kid off the team for making a poor decision. And throughout the tournament, bemoaning Kelvin Sampson's success. For making too many phone calls. It's one of those things that highlights yet again why Indiana finds itself in the position it is currently today, as it's trying to regain national relevance and competitiveness. There's a brave new world in college basketball. It's been here for some time. It's just all being done under the light now, and curious when Indiana is going to find itself back in a position where perhaps they get a little bit more exposure on one shining moment than the cheerleader grabbing a ball off the backboard.
I hear that. What are your thoughts? We have last 2 days obviously talked about that. I'm not saying that it's not my place to say he should be kicked off the team, but I can tell you I would not trust having him on my team. This is not a first time. And it's not a first time where he's put his team in peril. And for someone who's supposed to be a senior leader, that doesn't sit well with me, and it does not bode well with what I'm trying to do as I go forward. It doesn't seem like that fits in to the plans of progress.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting outcome how Woody decides to handle this one. If I'm Woody right now, Parker Stewart's key card to Cook Hall has officially been voided. There's shades of Hana Perea in that one, where it's just trouble seems to find him. Whatever happened at the Northwestern game, obviously, both the players in the car having previously been suspended. Obviously, Stewart's taken off. He's entered the portal. I would probably decide his time around my team and in my facilities is done. What he does with Xavier Johnson is going to be fascinating, quite honestly. There's still a lot to be worked out. There's still facts kind of trickling out, but from what's been reported thus far, it seems like an extraordinarily bad decision on Xavier Johnson's part, both running 90 miles an hour up Walnut, as well as deciding not to stop when the police officer activated his lights, and then trying to pass it off, putting another guy in the driver's seat, just add an insult to injury, really. And the poor dude ends up catching a rap for false informing for trying to help a dude out. So
but
I don't know what the answer is.
Here's the thing on that, Chronic. If you're gonna swap seats, which we've all heard of that stories, kids, when you're young, who gets out of the damn car, walks around the car, and gets in and does that?
Yeah, the Chinese fire drill only works really in high school, and little did we know at the time it doesn't work that well, actually.
No.
Obviously, it doesn't get any better with age. The thing that strikes me about the whole scenario, though, they were breath tested, trace amounts minimal, at least not enough to pursue a charge there. Question a buddy of mine who works in the legal industry poses is, what are you running from? Like, what is it that's happening at that time that makes you think that it's a better decision to step on the gas than it is just to shut it down and pull over? And I don't
And
want
do
to
you
get
think
too
that they're
wild
not
into
going to catch
speculation.
you at 3 a.m? There's no other targets out to even look for. You're the only thing out there. You're not getting anywhere. But yeah, so
Now, I mean, without getting too deep in the speculative hole here as far as what they were doing or what happened, prima facie, it's just a terrible decision from somebody that has now a record of making some poor decisions, or at least, prior decisions worthy of getting suspended. And, Woodson was, you're talking about how disappointing the season was. We can't lose the context that, when they started that skid, when they finished 2-7, starting from February through the close of the regular season. That Northwestern loss was self-inflicted for disciplinary reasons, and that certainly started a slide that they struggled to pull out of through the close of the regular season. It cost them the comfort of being safely in, of not having to play in the first four, having to make the tournament run they did. It's unfortunate that whatever lesson Woodson was trying to teach obviously wasn't heeded that well. And I don't want to get too pious here. I mean, I've been in this town long enough to know April is the most dangerous month to be a IU student in Bloomington, particularly an IU student athlete. It's just knucklehead season. There's a lot of kids having a lot of fun, but it is what it is. We've seen it time and time and time again in this town. This one came a little earlier than normal. Normally those events happen closer to Little Five schedule, but nevertheless, we've been here before. We've seen this. I don't know that there's a right answer as far as what should be done with Xavier, but I keep circling back to the fact that the programs that self-flagellate don't tend to find themselves in any better position, probably worse. With the NCAA. Not that this rises to the level of NCAA infraction, but from a disciplinary philosophy as a whole, I would caution against throwing the baby out with the bathwater for some of these indiscretions, because clearly that's not what the title-winning teams do in order to get to the mountaintop. They do whatever it takes to get the best players on the floor and give them the best chance to win basketball games. So it'll be fascinating to see how Woodson balances those two competing priorities, because it certainly would seem there's probably some discipline coming.
Oh,
Yeah,
there has to be.
Yeah, and I think there's a tolerance for that too. It's talent level versus discipline, right? If this was, Parker Stewart already had so many strikes against him and let's face it, did not contribute and rise to the level that everyone had hoped. But this is a guy, Xavier Johnson, that was on the come last year, averaged 5.1 assists and so forth, and is getting rid of him next season when you're going into the season worth it or not? Or can you find someone else in the transfer portal? That was something that Jim and I were discussing earlier, to replace him. I mean, Nigel Pack being out there as a prime example.
Yeah, maybe consult with them at Holt and see how that whole balancing works, because it's a Faustian bargain, man, and especially when you consider where Woodson is in his arc as the coach. Establishing certain baselines for this program is going to be essential, and we kind of took it at Northwestern, understanding that this is a temporary setback for a larger gain. That's really going to be tested here in how he chooses to handle it.
Yeah, it's and for all those people that questioned his discipline during that Northwestern time, I can only laugh now. This is exactly why you do it. Of course, it didn't quite have the impact that you would have hoped, but that's why you do that. You have to do that. And for all those people that questioned them disciplining them because it was potentially going to cost them a game, I couldn't believe that. But yeah, it just, I tell you, I don't want to be the hard ass either, because no one has been more of an idiot in their life than I have been. But at the same time, I also didn't have a D1 scholarship from Indiana University playing basketball in one of the most prestigious places that you can do that. So I didn't get that opportunity. Too much is given, much is expected. And man, 2 times when you have some big screw ups like that, I just don't know what that is saying to parents of other recruits coming in. since he's already had this run in. I heard that there was some type of incident possibly in the Bahamas as well. But and I know Woody wants to have some continuity. He's thinking, I've got an X coming back next year. We're going to be ready to roll. And now he's got this. He doesn't want to blow it up. So he's in a tough spot as well.
Well, and I think it also highlights some of the risks in living and dying in the transfer portal right now. You've got a situation where when you're recruiting the portal, you have a very, very shortened window in order to do your evaluations. Obviously, there's enough tape to watch at this point that you can make a pretty informed decision on their athletic ability. But so much of what goes into recruiting is finding the right fits for your program, for your team's culture. And there's not a whole lot of time to do that. This is a very needs-driven endeavor when you're recruiting in the portal. And, you've got a team right now that's lost portal players in Parker Stewart, Michael Durr. Both, basically gave you 1 year of action and then they're out the door. What happened along the way, I'm not saying that, it was directly related. I'm just saying there's a pattern where the outcomes from some of those those portal decisions may not align with what you would expect from a guy that you had, several years of evaluation, both the player as well as their families and everything else that these guys look at going into it. And, there's always going to be a risk in the unknowns when you have to make pretty snap decisions about what's going to be the best fit. And
there's something to be, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Craig, there's something to be said about the continuity aspect of Xavier Johnson come back after it looked like the light really went on for him at the end of the year in terms of knowing Woodson's system. And then if you have another year of that, then you have the potential to really have something very good. But obviously versus the culture aspect and, wanting to have a disciplined culture, you're bringing this guy back under these circumstances. It certainly makes Mike Woodson's decision awfully hard.
You know what they say about the devil, which you already know.
Yeah.
Hey, that's why they pay him the big bucks, man. But I wonder, with the school, do they get involved in that in any way?
I think it depends. Obviously, and it's important to state this because it all too often gets kind of washed away. These are allegations. There is a presumption of innocence until found guilty. And that's, I know that sounds like boilerplate, but from a procedural standpoint, the university would put themselves in jeopardy if they decided to act in any way, shape, or form before there was, either an adjudication or a gathering of facts that made certain things unequivocally clear. He is entitled to due process, both in the criminal justice system as well as within the university's, student conduct system. So I don't want to sound like I'm just spitting out lawyer speak, but there's a reason those protections exist. And I think it would be folly to dismiss those facts before this thing's had a chance to fully work itself out. Because as you mentioned, what is recommended for charges, what charges are brought, and what's ultimately settled on are often very, very far apart from what's originally reported in the paper. So keep that in mind as well. Try to keep an open mind as new facts come out, but don't be surprised if felonies are not ultimately in the conversation when this thing is finally resolved.
Yeah, I expect it. All that stuff to be dropped down. That's happens with anybody. It doesn't matter who it is, athlete or non-athlete. That's generally how you're able to get that done. But even with that, to me, it's not the point of what he can get done legally. It's what he has done from a decision-making standpoint and someone that you look at as what you would assume would be a captain on this team next year. Yeah.
And that's so is the beauty of college athletics, man. You've got this multi-billion-dollar industry and you are solely dependent on the discretions of 18 to 20 something young kids, young adults. And as we've seen time and time again, they're going to make some choices that you probably wouldn't agree with. Fortunately, nobody was injured in this one. And, as it was brought to my attention, that's a step in the right direction for the IU basketball program. Normally when we hear about incidents involving, after hour car mishaps. Last time this happened, we had a guy bleeding out on 17th Street right in front of the gym. So, fortunately, nobody was hurt, either
Was
the
Emmett
players
Holt
or
the person
bystanders.
that got hurt, or was he driving? I can't remember.
That's a great question. He certainly wasn't the one that got hurt. That was Devin Davis.
Okay, Devin Davis was the one. All right, I couldn't remember.
I have heard some very credible questions raised as to who was actually behind the wheel on that particular evening, and I don't want to get deep into that, but the Chinese fire drill is not a new technique when it comes to evading responsibility. I'll leave it there.